Welcome to the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel. I'm your host, ArmaniTalks. In this channel, I'm covering communication skills for you to level up in your way with words and become much more articulate. If this is your first time on the channel, welcome aboard. Every Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, scratch that. Every day of the week, I'm dropping new content on soft skills such as public speaking, social skills, emotional resilience, and much more. And if you're interested in learning more about these topics, hit that subscribe for me right on below. Hit that bell notification and never miss another video again. In today's episode, we are entering the world of emotional intelligence, and I'm going to be breaking down a concept known as the attitude economy. I haven't heard of this phrase before, so if it is not created, I am going to take credit for this. The attitude economy created by ArmaniTalks. Now, for us to understand the attitude economy, there's a couple of things that we need to understand. What do I mean by attitude economy? I mean that it pays to be pleasant. And for us to understand a concept like this, I need to go back into my past real quick. And I'm sure you'll be able to relate with what I'm about to say. When I was a little kid, I was terrified of two things. One was to step on the crack on the floor. And there was a famous saying, if you step on the crack, then you break your mama's back. So myself and a lot of the 6-year-olds were carefully navigating the floor to make sure that we were not stepping on any cracks. We didn't want our mom to go to the hospital now. Until one day, there was a guy named Frederick who was pretty pissed off at his mom. He's like, guys, my mom took away my Game Boy Color. I'm really mad at her. And you know what? He raised his foot right above a crack. And myself and the other kids were like, Frederick, no! But it was too late. Frederick ended up getting his foot and stomping it on that crack. And we're like, oh no, Frederick's mom, her poor back. So the rest of the school day ended. The next day, Frederick comes to us looking rather sad. Frederick was like, guys, my mom is fine. This whole step on your crack, break your mama's back thing, it's not real. And when Frederick tried it out for himself and he told us that it was not real, this concept now became real to us. Another example of this was called cooties. We were not allowed to talk to the opposite sex. So boys could not hang out with girls because the girls had cooties. Every now and then, whenever a girl did want to talk to us, we had to do this to make sure that we didn't catch cooties. Until one day, there was a guy named Jonathan who ended up liking a girl named Jessica, and they were talking left and right. And guess what? Jonathan wasn't doing this. And guess what? Jonathan didn't get cooties. That's when I learned that this whole concept of cooties was just a myth, like break your mama's back by stepping on a crack. When we saw Jonathan implementing this concept in real life, it became real to myself and the rest of the students. What does this go on to show? It goes on to show that we just need seeds to be planted for an immense change. Okay, that is the main thing that I want you to get from the break your mama's back, whatever, and the cooties stories. Now, with that being said, I want to tell you about how I believe the mainstreamification of the tip button is that tiny little seed that is planting the whole attitude economy. Roughly around 2006, to tip was one of these rare occurrences. You tipped under which circumstances? When you were eating at a fancy restaurant, when you were getting a haircut, and when you were paying for a valet. Other than that, you were not tipping. But nowadays, you tip anywhere. You go to McDonald's in the future, they're going to ask you to tip. You go to the convenience store, they're going to ask you to tip. You use the stall in a bathroom, you take a piss there, they're going to ask you to tip. And it makes sense from the business owner's perspective. All they really have to do is install one new menu. Tip, 15%, 20%, 25%, custom tip, that menu, and just like that, they have sealed themselves a new source of income. So nowadays we're tipping everywhere, okay? And I came to realize this on last Sunday. Last Sunday is what I call a lazy Sunday. Every now and then I have one of these lazy Sundays where I'm not trying to be too productive with my business. I'm trying to do some errands and I'm trying to have some fun. So I start the day off by getting my car cleaned. And once I get it cleaned, the gentleman asks, tip? I thought, yeah, sure, I'll give you some tip. Later on, I went to get some coffee. And once I went to order the coffee, the barista turned the tablet around. It asked, tip? So I said, all right, sure, I'll go ahead and give you some tip. I wanted the barber, you know the drill, tip? I said, all right, fine, I'll give you a tip. Eventually, my day came to watching Oppenheimer, and what happened was we ordered the tickets beforehand, so no tip was needed. But thus far, I mean, after going to the 3 spots beforehand, I spent roughly $10 in tips. After Oppenheimer, which was a long movie by the way, I worked up an appetite. I go to this one place where, unfortunately, I went a little late. I would say 35 minutes before closing, I ended up stepping foot inside the establishment. And the lady rolls her eyes like, one of these customers. I felt bad, but I was hungry. So I go inside, I begin placing my order, and she's making her displeasure known to me. She's over here rolling her eyes, sighing, clanking the spoon, and it's making it a very unpleasurable experience for me. By the time we are about to end the transaction, she flips her tablet around. It asks, tip? And I clicked, no tip. Now, at this point, I clicked no tip for 2 reasons. Number 1, the lady's attitude was not on point. But number 2, even if her attitude was on point, I just have so much money. I can't give her tips as well because nowadays, every place has a tip. So I want you to picture yourself having a lazy Sunday like myself, where I went to 4 establishments. And you could even add in 5 to 6 establishments, which is not out of the norm. And if you're trying to chill the entire day, going to 6 establishments here and there is completely reasonable. You have $13 in tips to spend. Now, you can't give everyone money. Sometimes you can, but depending on a large, bulky transaction, for you to give 15%, some places are going to require more money than other places. You have $13 to spend in 6 different establishments. Now, I want you to really simulate this in your mind. As you go to one place, what is it that is going to make or break this guy getting a tip? It's the attitude. If the first person is, let's say, huffing and puffing, sighing away, you're thinking, okay, well, I only have a limited amount of $13 to spend. Let me not waste it on this guy. The attitude is not on point. And then for the next person, you're like, the attitude is not on point either. I can still save the $13 and roll it over for my next lazy Sunday. It's the attitude that ultimately makes or breaks the situation. Now, you could be a noble person. You could be like, well, I would like to give tips to everyone. That would have been a reality if the mainstreamification of the tip button did not happen. However, the mainstreamification of the tip button did happen. So due to that, and you having a limited amount of money, you have to be more precise on who gets tip and who doesn't. And if you run the simulation in your mind, heck, if you do a lazy Sunday for yourself, where you go to 4 to 6 places throughout the day, you will realize that the person who gets the tip is the one that shows the best attitude. Now that day, after I decided not to give that lady a tip due to her attitude and due to the limitation of money, a concept suddenly became real to me. The concept that became real was ambiguous emotions lead to concrete dollars. Once this concept became real for me, I suddenly understood the concept of the attitude economy. For ArmaniTalks, this business, it's not a tip-based business. However, me simply becoming cognizant of the fact that I was giving money to someone based on their attitude indicated to my nervous system, hey, emotions play a crucial role in reality. Your attitude could pay the bills. It pays to be pleasant. And nowadays, that moment indicated to my nervous system, hey, don't be mean for no reason, buddy. So I believe that in the future, due to the mainstreamification of the tip button, it's that little seed. It's sort of like Frederick or Jonathan telling us a sign of a new reality. And I believe in the future, more and more folks are going to understand the role that their attitude plays on reality by having a lazy Sunday for themselves, where they have a limited pool of money to deal with, and now they are giving out the money to the different services, and they're seeing who gets the money and who does not get the money is solely based on attitude. By having a first-hand moment like this in relationship to our lives, we can now attach the ambiguous emotions to concrete dollars. And once we make that connection, one person at a time, that is when we are laying the seeds of the attitude economy. So if you enjoyed today's talk, go on and drop that like for me right on below. And thank you very much for joining the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel.